Now, right here, I can prove to you that you believe in magic, that you will disregard observable reality, logic, and demonstrable fact. Now, this here before you is official release from NASA that some twerp sent me showing a spaceship, a rocket leaving the Earth, going in outer space. All you see is like a dot. That's not what I'm addressing here. What I want to address here is the magical things you people unwittingly must believe in once you realize or are told what is fact and what is fictitious or theory. Okay, now they say this is the Earth, and these are 5 layers of gaseous atmosphere that surround the Earth, and water vapor and clouds, oxygen, and 5 layers of gas. Now, we know through observable fact and demonstrable reality that gas and oxygen will always, unequivocally, and instantaneously fill the available volume of the puny vacuum chambers we make at sea level on the ground, where they tell us gravity has more influence. Now, they also say that gravity weakens or decreases with altitude. The higher you go, gravity weakens. They love to say, oh, you weigh less on a mountain, and that's because gravity's weaker. Okay? So, this is 250 miles up. This would be the Kármán line. This is 5 layers of gas in a fixed state. And this is the infinite vacuum of universe which surrounds the whole Earth according to their model. An infinite vacuum 36 billion light years across. That's 36 billion light years of available volume or room that matter can fit in, or the absence of air. So, we see on sea level at the ground that gas and oxygen always fill the available volume of the puny vacuum chambers we make. You cannot refute that. When gas and oxygen come into contact with any vacuum we make, any vacuum chamber, when the barrier or divider is removed, gas and oxygen cannot remain fixed in the presence of that vacuum. The gas and oxygen will always flow into that vacuum instantaneously. And this all occurs where they say gravity has more influence. So why wouldn't the oxygen and gas here, where they say gravity is weaker, why wouldn't it flow into the infinite vacuum of outer space? How can it just stop here? When we know for a fact on the Earth, gas cannot contain itself. You need a container. You need a tank or a can. If you want to bring home propane, you need a tank. Because propane or gas cannot contain itself. Hairspray cannot contain itself for you to bring home. It has to be in a can. It needs a container. Because when gas or oxygen is not in a container, it disperses in all directions at high velocity and will not stop until it hits a wall of the container. That's the only thing that can stop it. That's how we get pressure. You cannot demonstrate any pressure of any gas without a contained environment to stop the gas or oxygen from dispersing in all directions. We have wind, we have the jet stream, we have wind blowing up, down, left, right, sideways, diagonally, and this all occurs where they say gravity is stronger on the ground of the Earth. Okay? So why would it stop behaving the way it does where gravity is weaker? It would do what it does even more where gravity is weaker. So how can all these 5 layers of gas in these atmospheres here, how can it remain fixed like that? What's stopping it? Okay, there's no barrier that they tell us about here. Gas cannot contain itself. And we know that oxygen and gas, when it comes into contact with with any vacuum, forgive me, what can be demonstrated is that gas and oxygen will always fill the puny vacuums we make on the earth. The vacuums we make on earth are not infinite because we have to contain them in a container of which we suck the air out. And that becomes the vacuum. Now, when you take the lid off the vacuum, the gas and oxygen fill that vacuum immediately. We can demonstrate that that is an unequivocal, irrefutable fact. And it all occurs where gravity is stronger. So when you go up 250 miles, gravity weakens. But for some reason, gas has some magical ability to contain itself and stop itself and remain fixed right next to, surrounded by, and within an infinite vacuum universe 10 to the negative 17 torr infinite vacuum billions of light years across. That's how I know we are being lied to. I know that for a fact. Otherwise, you have to believe in magic to believe that. First of all, let me say, you do know where gas and oxygen come from? It comes from the earth, the ground, trees, animals, and us. And there's a lot of man-made gas that we produce in manufacturing, in industry. Okay, but it all comes from the earth. And when it's not contained, it goes in all directions, up, that way, down, left, right, diagonally, every direction equally, unless it's contained in a contained environment, tank, can, or chamber. Okay? So we know that this is ridiculous because gas and oxygen cannot remain right next to an infinite vacuum universe with no divider, no barrier. Okay, because we can always demonstrate that gas and oxygen always fill the available volume of a vacuum chamber, and the vacuum chambers we make are puny. Do you realize, people, that they're saying outer space is an infinite vacuum universe 36 billion light years across? Each light year is almost 6 trillion miles. 1 trillion seconds would take over 30,000 years to go by. 1 trillion seconds. Now imagine 1 trillion miles. Imagine almost 6 trillion miles in one single light year. Now imagine 36 billion light years. 36 billion times 6 trillion. And that's how big they say the outer space infinite vacuum universe is, that surrounds the Earth, and that the Earth is within in its entirety. So there's no way in observable, demonstrable reality that gas and oxygen can contain themselves, how they depict here. That's how I know this isn't real. Because the gas and oxygen of the Earth would fill here, and here, and all over would go into the infinite vacuum universe. Because that's what it does on the Earth at sea level, where they say gravity is stronger. So why wouldn't it do that 250 miles high, where they say gravity is weaker? It would disperse in all directions even more. If it disperses in all vectors at high velocity, where gravity has more influence on the ground or at sea level and in the air, in the sky, why wouldn't it do it here, right next to an infinite vacuum? That from here to here, they're saying these are 5 layers of gaseous atmosphere, your thermosphere, troposphere, and atmosphere, mesosphere. It's remaining fixed. It's containing itself somehow. This is illogical, people. This is why you are allowing these people to mock you. You are believing in magic. Look, there's the earth. There's the oxygen and water vapor and clouds of the earth flowing any way it wants with the jet stream, left, right, north, east, west, south, up, down, left, right, diagonally. And then they got 5 layers of gas atmospheres covering the earth like Velcro. And then right after the atmosphere, next to the atmospheres, is an infinite vacuum universe, 36 billion light years across. So I know this is fake because this gas and oxygen always fill the available volume of vacuum chambers we make at sea level on the ground, where they say gravity has more influence. So there's no way you're going to tell me that 250 miles high, where gravity has less influence according to them, that gas and oxygen can just stop, remain fixed, contain itself, all within and surrounded by an infinite vacuum universe 36 billion light years wide. That's more than redundant. You must believe in magic or have an IQ well below 99 to discard, ignore, and argue against observable fact. A fact is something, the result is the same without deviation. Gas and oxygen always, it never fails. At sea level, ground, where they say gravity has more influence, gas and oxygen will always go into the vacuum chambers when the gas and oxygen come into contact with the vacuum chamber. So why wouldn't it do that where gravity is weaker with altitude? Because they say if you go climb 4-mile high mountain, you weigh less because gravity's less. That's what they'll try to tell you. So 4 miles high off the earth, gravity is weaker. Now how about another 245 miles? Right at the Kármán line where there's an infinite vacuum universe. How is this gaseous 5 layers of atmosphere remaining fixed? How is it containing itself? And why isn't it going into the infinite vacuum universe? 10 to the negative 17 torque vacuum. 1,000,000,000 times stronger than any vacuum we can make on the earth. Yet, gas and oxygen always fill the available volume of the vacuum. And it all occurs where they say gravity has more influence. So gravity is weaker up here, but gas and oxygen can cling to the earth, it can contain itself, and it can resist an infinite vacuum universe when it can't do that on the earth, where gravity's stronger. The gas and oxygen always fill the vacuum chambers we make that are puny compared to an infinite vacuum universe. Look, there's oxygen and gas right next to an infinite vacuum universe with no barrier, no separator. They're both existing in harmony, equilibrium together. That cannot be demonstrated on the earth. Quite the contrary and the opposite exactly. Okay, gas and oxygen always fill the available volume of the vacuums we make on Earth where they say gravity is stronger. So it would do the same thing up here where gravity's weaker. All that oxygen and gas would go into that infinite vacuum universe. To believe otherwise means you're indoctrinated. You are the truest form of artificial intelligence, and you do believe in magic. I know this is fake because atmosphere cannot just remain fixed and maintain itself next to a vacuum. Mind you, an infinite vacuum universe, 36 billion light years across. All this gas and all the oxygen on the earth would go into this infinite vacuum universe instantaneously. We'd have no air to breathe. We'd be dead. So I know for a fact that whatever's above the real earth, because this is CGI animation, whatever's above the blue sky and the clouds of the earth cannot be an infinite vacuum universe. I know that for a fact. People, please wake up. Reality is not magical. It can be demonstrated. There are true physics and there are real science that does not rely on theoretical nonsense that cannot be demonstrated. What you are doing is appealing to authority fallacy. You are not thinking for yourself. You are letting these people dictate what your reality is. And you are instantaneously believing it. That is not learning. How is it learning if you instantaneously believe it and the only effort you put into it is to memorize it so you can regurgitate it? Okay? If gravity is stronger on the Earth and gas and oxygen always fill the available volume of the vacuum where gravity is stronger, it would do the same thing where gravity is weaker. Gas and oxygen always fill the available volume of a vacuum. And we're not talking about the puny vacuums we make on Earth. We're talking about an infinite vacuum universe, 36 billion light years wide, 10 to the negative 17 torr vacuum. We could never create such a vacuum like that on the Earth. You know how void and absent of air that would be? Vacuums must be contained also. A vacuum can't just exist unto itself. It has to be in a container. And once contained, it cannot expand. So go figure that out if you have an IQ over 80.